Hey y'all, welcome back to Dots and Beyond. My name is Beth, and today we are going to look at these Ohuhu markers. Now, this video is not sponsored in any way by Ohuhu. I did purchase these with my own hard-earned cash, but I have been curious about them, and I just kind of wanted to check these out and see how these dual tip markers are. So again, these are a water-based non-toxic dual tip marker. There is a brush side, there is a fine liner side, and there are 160 markers in this set. And we are going to go ahead, and you see I've already unzipped part of it. We're going to unzip the rest of this around, and it opens up like this. And we have fold out this way, fold out this way. And this is our 160 markers. Now they did send this little color chart. They also sent this swatch page that comes with it with all 160 slots. Now this paper is compared to Archer and Olive a little creamier. So here's the Archer and Olive white paper. So I do have a swatch page that we are going to do here in my swatch journal so that I can know what it looks like on the white paper and not this cream paper. So I'm going to tuck this off to the side. Now what also came in here were replacement tips. So there are 5 replacement tips for the brush pens and 3 replacement tips for the fine liner end of the pen. So it's good to have those around as well if those need replacing. And here are all of our colors. Now what I'm also going to do is compare black brush pens when we get going here. So this is an Amazon Basics. This came in a set of 50, I do believe, that I have of brush pens. Very similar to the Tombos. The tips may be a little bit more stiff than the Tombow. They do not have specific names, so I numbered them with number stickers myself and swatched them so I can kind of keep track of those. Of course, here is the N15 Tombow, which is the black Tombow. And then this is a brush pen that is a black Pigma Micron. And of course, this being the archival ink and not just the water-based that runs a little bit more so. But these are going to be much more comparable to a Tombow with the exception of that fine liner tip. So let me go ahead and stick these off to the side. And we are going to try and check some of these out. So let me see if I can find the black. There's gray. You can tell I haven't really looked at this set all that much yet. Looks like there we have found the closest thing to black. And let's go ahead and check this out. So this is what the brush end looks like. It is a 1 to 2 millimeter brush end. And then here is the fine liner tip, which again is a 0.4. My sweet spot is a 0.5, but 0.4 is not that far off. And I have actually already used one of these in my therapy journal setup, which was the last video I uploaded. I'll put it up here if you want to see that pen in action. I did just use the one, but let's go ahead and see how these swatch. As you can see, that was a gray, not the black. I do think I have now found the black. Yes, there we go. So there is the black. And that is what the fine liner looks like. And I do want to test this with 1 stripe, 2 color overs, and 3 color overs. Because sometimes we like to double up. I did not feel that do any pilling or anything. It didn't. So it does layer over fairly well without pulling up on the paper, at least for the Archer and Olive paper. This did come out of an Archer and Olive journal. Now, let's go ahead and check out the rest of these. So here is the Amazon Basics. 1 swipe, 2 swipes, 3 swipes, and you can tell that I have used this because it is getting very, very low on ink. And then the end of it looks like that. And again, that one is just about out of ink on its last legs. Here is our Tombow. I guess I should probably... You can tell that Beth does not do any brush lettering. It's not my forte. It's not something that I do. And then the Pigma Micron, which tends to still be my go-to when it comes to a brush pen if I need to fill in fine areas. This tip's been a little bit abused. It's time for me to pick up another one. And of course it does not have a fine liner tip because we use regular fine liners for that. So there is your difference in color, and I realize that this one's getting a little low on ink, but as you can tell, it's not quite as opaque black. Ditto for the Pigma Micron, not quite as opaque as I would have thought it would compare. And then we have the Ohuhu marker and the Tombow, which I think the Ohuhu is actually a little bit more opaque than the Tombow, and this is a new Tombow, so it's not been worn out. So that is pretty true to color. Now my light is a little bright on it here on camera. It looks a little lighter on camera than it does in person, but there is a very quick comparison of the Ohuhu versus the fan favorite, the Tombow, and then of course the Amazon Basics and the Pigma Micron. We'll go ahead and tuck this off to the side. Now this is my swatch journal, or at least the back of this journal is my swatch journal. I'm behind on a lot of things, but see, here I have my acrylographs. Here are my Tombows that I have in my collection. I just picked up some Pigma Microns that are very light cool gray and regular cool gray, and I'm loving this color of a Pigma Micron. And then I did go ahead and set up this swatch page for the dual tip markers for Ohuhu so that I could have my colors on this white paper that I do prefer from Archer and Olive. There are 160 squares. These squares are 2 by 2, and we are going to go ahead and get to swatching so we can see what these colors look like on this paper. I guess I should point out that all of these are numbered, so they do have a corresponding number to go with the box here, or if you want to just use the regular color guide that came with the set. I've just figured out that these come out of the case, which is very handy indeed. This is why we look at the number before we swatch, because somewhere here I made a mistake, caught it before 10 when I was about to color 9, and had to come back and stick little bits over these. I think some of these were correct, but we're going to work backwards and make sure I get these in here correctly. Well, I certainly made a mess of that row, didn't I? C'est la vie. Hey, also there was our swatch of all 160 of these Ohuhu markers. Now, when you're swatching this many things, you have a lot of time to think, and you can really kind of tell how they maneuver and how they feel. And one of the things that I wanted to sort of try is that it occurred to me that the stiffness of the tip of the Ohuhu markers reminds me of the Tombow Furunosuke. And so I have one of those here, and I was just going to double check that. It does. It gives you a whole lot more control like the Furunosuke does. And it feels very similar. The tip feels similar, even though it is a wider brush. It is much stiffer and allows for some control that maybe you don't necessarily get with a Tombow. So maybe the Ohuhus are your introductory drug essentially to the Tombow. If you've been learning brush lettering with the Furunosuke and you kind of need to step up to the Tombow, maybe that's the option you go. They are also far more economical. I'm just going to say that out loud. They are far more economical than a Tombow is. And they do come with the case. The other thing I wanted to go ahead and double check was to see kind of how they blended together. And so I went ahead and grabbed some of these green colors and of course a stencil. And I have a couple of H's here, one, much smaller than the others because I don't think they don't come with a blending pen like a Tombow does. I'm not a big fan of trying to blend my Tombows, but I do sometimes do this gradient lettering to see if I can blend those things together. I mean, that was very haphazardly done and very, very quickly, but they blend about the same, I think. Except for that when you do get 3 or 4 layers on it, as I mentioned before, there's really no pilling, and that's sort of the big issue that I have with the Tombows when it comes to trying to blend them on the page. So I think these actually layer over one another a little bit better than the Tombows do. I don't think it's a super marked difference, but I do like that, it's not starting to pull the page up when layering those things over top of one another. And then one more surprise for you. I did not leave out to you people who love your craft paper. I am not a lover of the craft paper, but I did swatch these on craft as well so that you could see what those look like. This is the full set of 160 swatched on the craft paper, so I colored 320 boxes for this Ohuhu test. So we will go ahead and look at these side by side. So these are the same colors side by side, and of course the lighter ones kind of disappear into the color. The more saturated ones are more saturated on the craft paper, and that's because the craft paper soaks up so much ink. It's one of the reasons I don't particularly like it. I like using it for like vintage setups and that sort of thing, but I'm not a fan of the craft paper as much as I'm not a fan of the black paper either. And then here is the other page, and side by side so that you can see the difference in the colors of the two of those. Most of these sort of flesh toned colors just completely disappeared into the craft paper. But at least I did these a little neater than I did these. Don't do this. Just fix the whole row next time. Just put a piece of white paper over the whole row and start all over again, Beth, if you ever have to do this again. Funny thing is this journal is about to be full, and I really just need to move my swatch journal into its own thing, and I should have thought about that before I did 120 of these because I'm about to have to do them again. But there is our swatch. Now, how do I feel about the Ohuhu markers and why did I buy them? I really bought them because I am trying to step away from things that are over the top like the paint. I really want to scale back in 2023 with my setups and make them a little more simplified and stick with a wide range of colors that I would normally try to get by mixing paint colors. And I am not ready to fully invest in a set of Tombows. Now let me tell you the very big difference between Ohuhu and Tombow. It's the same difference that I have with the Amazon dual brush pens and the Tombows, is that you cannot replace these in individual colors. The Amazon Basics dual tip brush pens you cannot replace in individual colors. So Ohuhu, if you are listening, I've checked out Amazon, I've checked out your website, I've looked to see if, you know, I run out of an 81, can I replace an 81? And I cannot. And that is the one thing that Tombow still has over top of all of its competition, is that you can replace individual markers. But do I regret buying this 160 marker set of Ohuhu? Absolutely not. They are very, very smooth. The colors are very, very saturated. And so for just the inability to replace an individual marker, I'm going to give these 4.5 stars. They would be a 5-star if I could buy individual markers. If we talked about price, I picked mine up on Amazon. They right now are at about $48. They're $55 for the 160 set on Ohuhu's website. I think when I bought mine, I had a 20% off coupon, so I did get a little bit of a deal on picking these up for me. But again, they are far more economical than the Tombow if this is a route that you want to go and try to get a large range of colors for a fraction of the cost. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this swatching of my new Ohuhu markers, and I will catch you in the next one.